Summary of Edward II by Christopher Marlowe. Piers Gaveston, who was kicked out of England and sent back to his home country of France, gets a letter from Edward II, his friend and likely lover. Edward II became King of England after his father died, and in his letter to Gaveston, he says that he has ended Gaveston's imprisonment and wants him to come share in his wealth and power. Gaveston agrees quickly because he is excited to see Edward and thinks that he can use the king's love to his own advantage. Tensions start to rise, though, even before Gaveston announces that he is going back to England. Edward II fights with a group of nobles who think Gaveston is a manipulative social climber and want him to stay away. Gaveston watches from a hiding place. Even though the Earl of Kent, who is the king's brother, tells Mortimer Jr. and the other nobles that they are dangerously close to treason, they stand strong in their opposition and threaten war as they return to their homes. Gaveston then tells Edward who he is, and the two are happy to see each other again. Edward makes Gaveston Earl of Cornwall and gives him the power to give orders and take money from the purse in the name of the king. But the happy meeting is ruined when the Bishop of Coventry shows up. He makes it clear that he also doesn't want Gaveston to come back. With Edward's support, Gaveston attacks the bishop, puts him in jail, and takes his property. The attack on Coventry and Edward's continued lack of care for his wife Isabella, who is the sister of the King of France, make the nobles think even less of Gaveston. Along with the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Lords Mortimer Jr., Mortimer Sr., the Earl of Warwick, the Earl of Lancaster, and the Earl of Pembroke issue an order for Gaveston's exile. But at first, Edward won't sign the order, even though they stress that he has duties to both the church and the English nobility. In response, the nobles forcefully arrested Gaveston and threatened to start a revolt. This made the king reluctantly agree to Gaveston's banishment, even though he was his favorite. Then there is a sad goodbye, and Edward says he will send money to Gaveston in Ireland. Shortly after Gaveston leaves, Isabella tries to convince the lords to let him come back. Edward, who thinks she had an affair with Mortimer Jr., blames her for Gaveston's exile and won't even talk to her while he's gone. The lords agree because they think that bringing Gaveston back will at least give them a chance to kill him. The nobles don't agree with Edward's plan, but they seem ready to compromise, which makes the king like them again. He even gives Mortimer Sr. the job of leading his army in Scotland. In the meantime, Edward gets ready for Gaveston's return by calling Gaveston's fiancée, Lady Margaret de Clare, back to court so they can get married. Lady Margaret is Edward's niece, so their marriage will officially make Gaveston part of the royal family. Lady Margaret brings along her tutor, Baldock, and a family servant called Spencer Jr. Both of these men want to work for Gaveston and become the king's favorites. Gaveston gets back to court, but almost as soon as he does, he and the nobles get into another fight. When Mortimer Jr. finds out that his uncle, Mortimer Sr., has been taken by the Scots and is being held for ransom, things only get worse. Edward doesn't want to pay for Mortimer Sr.'s release, so the nobles make a list of all the ways they think the king has been irresponsible, spending money on art instead of the military, putting diplomatic ties at risk by how he treated the queen, ignoring the nobles' own opinions, and so on. Edward doesn't care about any of this, which turns off not only the nobles but also his own brother, who goes to join Mortimer Jr., Lancaster, and the other earls in planning an attack on the court at Tynemouth to take Gaveston. After the attack on the house, Edward and Gaveston have to go their separate ways. The nobility decided to go after Gaveston, and they did catch up to him in the end. At first, they agree that Gaveston should be able to see Edward one last time before he is killed. Warwick, on the other hand, doesn't like the deal, so he hides and kills Gaveston as he is being led to the king. When Edward finds out about this, he vows to get even and gets ready to go to war with the lords, who now want Edward to stop favoring Spencer Jr. In the first fight, Edward's forces beat the nobles, and Warwick, Lancaster, and Mortimer Jr. are all taken into custody. The first two are killed in the end, but Mortimer Jr. and Kent are able to escape to France. There, they meet up with Isabella, whom Edward had sent to France with their son Prince Edward to talk about England's rights to the area of Normandy. Isabella's loyalty to her husband has finally run out though, and she is now trying to find friends who will help her make her son king instead, which the prince does not want. Edward thinks he can stop the queen from being a threat by buying off the French aristocrats, but Isabella and Mortimer, who are now in love, find help from a nobleman named Sir John of Hainault. With Kent, they go back to England and fight against the king's troops at Bristol. This time, Edward is the one who loses, but Baldock, Spencer Jr., and the king himself are able to escape to a convent, where the abbot offers to hide them. A man who works as a mower, though, tells on them, and all three are caught. Spencer Jr. and Baldock are taken away to be killed, while Edward is locked up in Kenilworth under the watch of the Earl of Leicester. With the help of the Bishop of Winchester, Leicester gets Edward to give up his crown. Still, Mortimer Jr. gets rid of Leicester quickly because he cares too much about Edward's situation. He replaces him with Berkeley, but then gets rid of him, too. Mortimer chooses Gorney and Maltravers as guards in the end. He tells them to torture Edward as much as possible and move him back and forth between Kenilworth and Berkeley to stop any efforts to escape. Mortimer has found out that Kent regrets his part in his brother's downfall and is planning to set him free. Gorney and Maltravers do what they are told. They make fun of Edward and catch Kent when he tries to talk to his brother. The plans for Prince Edward's crowning have been made by Mortimer Jr. Since the young king is still a boy, Mortimer will have real power as both the Lord Protector and the Queen Mother's lover. Still, he thinks his place isn't really safe until Edward II is dead, so he hires an assassin, Lightbourne, to kill Edward II. After sending Lightbourne on his way, Mortimer quickly shows Prince Edward, now King Edward III, that he is in charge by putting Kent to death against the wishes of the new king. Lightbourne gets to Berkeley and tells Gorney and Maltravers about his task. Unbeknownst to him, they have been told to kill him as soon as Edward dies. At first, Lightbourne pretended to be on Edward's side. Then, he told the former king to lie down on a feather bed, where he killed him with a hot knife. Then, Gorney stabs Lightbourne and runs away, while Maltravers tells Mortimer Jr. about the crime. As he does this, Isabella goes crazy and tells him that Edward III has found out about his father's death and thinks she and Mortimer killed him. Then Edward III walks in with members of the nobles and the written order for Edward II's death that Mortimer had given. Mortimer says goodbye to Isabella and calmly accepts the fact that he is going to be killed. Isabella keeps trying to talk to her son, but she fails. In the end, Edward III puts her in jail until he can find out if and how she was involved in killing his father. Finally, he tells people to get a hearse ready for Edward II and puts Mortimer's head on it.
About the author. Christopher Marlowe was the son of a shoemaker, but he still got a grant to study at Cambridge, where he got a bachelor's degree. The school also gave him a master's degree, which seems to have been at the government's suggestion. The government had praised Marlowe for helping his country, which could be a reference to his work as a spy. Marlowe probably started writing plays while he was still at Cambridge, but the dates of most of his work are not known for sure. What is clear is that after Marlowe graduated, he went to London to try to make a living as a playwright. However, he often ran into trouble with the law, including being accused of blasphemy and atheism. He died in a fight in a tavern not long after an arrest warrant was issued for him. Most of his plays were released after his death. But Marlowe was a very popular writer, and his style, which included using blank verse and trying out historical drama, had a big impact on Shakespeare, whose career as a playwright overlapped with Marlowe's.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.